Thanks, David.
Hi, everyone.
Bon après-midi. James Murdoch, you've had a big year, an intense year. 21st Century Fox, born out of the split of the News Corp business. Very, very wide-ranging, as we saw in the movie. What's the big mission in the new business?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you very much, David, for doing this. And also, thank you, everyone, for being here. It's really incredible to be at MIPCOM this week. I haven't actually been for a few years. And it's just such an incredibly sort of enervating reminder of just what an incredible marketplace this is and what an incredible industry. And to see the kind of diversity of creativity and commerce that you're all engaged in and that we're all here and part of is just, I find, hugely energizing and exciting. So thank you very much for having me. At 21st Century Fox, it's sort of strange because for us as a company, it's sort of, the journey started a little, some 30 years ago with the first acquisition of 20th Century Fox, the film studio, and then the creation of the Fox Network, the Sky businesses, Star TV, and so on and so forth. But it's also a business that is just a year old. And what we're seeking to do at 21st Century Fox is really take what we believe and what we aspire to be, one of the great sort of homes for creativity and homes for storytelling, and really take it forward for another many decades. And that's really, first and foremost, I think for us, it's about being a place where we can attract some of the best talent, where we can make an environment where people can do really the best work of their lives, and we can give them the opportunity to take risks that they might not be able to take elsewhere. And we don't always hit that mark, but that's what we're aspiring to do. And we're very, very proud to be able to work with all the people that we work with. But the journey really is only just beginning in this sort of super dynamic century that we're starting out.
So it's a pretty big operation you're running. Cable, broadcast, film, pay TV, satellite, 6 continents, 1.5 billion subscribers a day. How do you personally manage your time? What are your personal priorities day by day?
I think, the business at the end of the day is really a digital video business. And it's a business about storytelling, a business of ideas. But what's fascinating as we look forward at this business, and even currently, is that a lot of the barriers between the different lines of businesses that we may have, a lot of the business rules are kind of breaking down. So the challenges that we face from a commercial perspective in one part of the world versus another are often very similar. The challenges that we face in terms of strategy, in terms of how we think about our customers and how they're behaving and what they expect from us, are similar from place to place and from business to business. It's kind of interesting. We try to be a business where entrepreneurs can come and do work, a place where executives and creative talent are empowered to go and do things. So, I find myself probably prioritizing the emergencies, because I have to, but also really trying to spend as much time as I can with a variety of people and colleagues around the organization, be it from Bombay to Los Angeles, to really make sure that they have the confidence to go out and pursue the business's goals, tell the stories that they need to tell, and do it in an environment where there's really a strong culture of that risk-taking. So we spend a lot of time on culture. We spend a lot of time, I spend a lot of time just face-to-face with people and trying to, help them do better work and make them the sort of, the heroes that can go out and actually get the business done.
So despite its scale, it's still, at its heart, I guess, a family business. You are COO, your dad is chairman and CEO, your brother Lachlan is co-chairman, Chase Carey is president and COO. How does that work in practice?
It's a pretty straightforward. I mean, we have a normal, a normal relationship as colleagues. I mean, Chase and I on the 21st Century Fox side really, have been working together. Other than a short stint when he was away, we've been working together since the late 90s, and in various capacities. And essentially, we just try to look after the business. I don't think there's any magic to it. I think when you have a strong team, and we have a very strong team of colleagues around us, we're able to really rely on them. We try to have a very collaborative culture. Sometimes we're less collaborative than we should be, sometimes more. But in any large organization where we're managing people, and particularly where we're managing in a business that's a creative business, it can be, you have to aspire, I think, to something really, really great, and then you try to organize yourself to get there. But hopefully you never get there, because by the time you get close, you're moving it further out. But in terms of management structure, we actually we're a very lean business. We have a very flat structure at the top. And we really like to have our operating companies, the companies we're invested in, really empowered and largely independent to be able to go and pursue, the stuff that they know best how to pursue for their brands, for their customers, for their colleagues.
So without this sounding like a therapy question, when did you last call your dad?
2 days ago. 2 days ago. We all work very closely together. We speak all the time, but we're always sort of crisscrossing around the world, so it's mostly on the phone.
Okay. And we're going to talk about the future of the industry, but a company like 21st Century Fox can't go through a weekend without news of what's happening now, and the big news that's being reported this week is the Shine Endemol Core Media joint venture. Why?
Well, unfortunately, it was reported like a few weeks ago, and we weren't quite ready. So, but we announced finally the merger. Look, I think it's very straightforward. It's something we're very excited about. Shine, has been a member of a part of our business and a member of the family for a few years now. It's an incredible business that we're enormously excited about and fond of. My sister founded the business and ran it for many years. And we really think it's done, and the Shine folks, and I hope some of you came today, have done some really tremendous work around the world, from Australia to the US and the UK, Scandinavia, et cetera. But we also felt that the opportunity to create something that was really the global leader in terms of scale by merging with Endemol and Core was something that shouldn't be passed up, and that for everyone in both companies, we really wanted to create something, and we do want to create something there that can be a larger platform for them, a larger canvas, if you will, and a place where they can really do some incredible work. So, this is a business, generally speaking, that can benefit from scale, that can benefit from that breadth and diversity of creativity that you can create. We really think that Shine and Endemol coming together is a very attractive opportunity of that sort, and we're excited about its future growth, enormously so.
So between them, I think they currently have about 600 different formats. Correct me if I'm wrong. At what stage does a company become too big to be nimble and creative?
Well, I think it's a question of how you manage them, right? And I think when we think about creative businesses anyway, I think you make a good point. It's important to keep a certain amount of decision-making highly empowered and around a subset of things, right? So that you can't over-synergize in these businesses. I think you have to allow people to run, their own show, to run their own shop, if you will. And what you want to do is create a platform for them where they can come and do that, where the best people from around the world can come and do that. It's similar, when we look at what the film studio at 20th Century Fox has been able to do between, what they call Big Fox, which is 20th Century Fox, and Fox Searchlight and Fox 2000, and these sort of imprints there that have really excelled by being able to be a more manageable creative process, a more manageable sort of span of control, if you will, and really benefit from the strong imprimatur of the leaders of each one of those things. So I think while you can put a lot of things together, it's very important when something, particularly in a creative business, has a unique identity and a unique culture, as all successful ones do. You have to make sure that you're not over-engineering the large scale of it, but where you can in terms of distribution, in terms of how you commercially kind of go out to the world. That's where that scale really benefits, and it creates a better platform for all of those individual creators.
So do you feel we're going to enter an era of rapid consolidation?
I think we're already in it. We certainly see consolidation at the sort of infrastructure layer of the television business, cable and satellite, et cetera, the retailers of television and broadband. We see an explosion of new competition of sort of the over-the-top retailers, be they a Sky Go type of a business, or an Amazon or a Netflix, and so on and so forth. But I think at the upstream business, in the copyright business, I think we will probably see more consolidation. But it's very important, scale for scale's sake doesn't really get you there. What we really need in an environment like this is to have big brands, really distinctive, high quality, differentiated programming. Storytelling, of a very high order, be it scripted drama or sports with all of the wonder and excitement and jeopardy involved in that. We need to have things that really can stand out and that are discoverable by customers in a meaningful way. I think that's really where this is going. So I see, I think there are some people will seek to invest a lot more in programming and will continue to, because really that's where ultimately the value is. It's in that copyright, in that story. That's ultimately what customers are paying for, what they're tuning in for, and it's what we have to continue to get better at and bigger at.
Talking about scale, we thought over the summer that we were going to get a huge media conglomerate. So in June, there was a bid for Time Warner, reported at 80 billion cash and stock, and that was rejected, and then Goldman Sachs got involved, and there was a suggestion it would be rebid, and then finally, I think in August, you withdrew the bid. This could be a TV format.
Well, without commenting on the play-by-play, I'm not sure I agree, but look, it was an opportunity at a moment in time where we thought, a combination could be very, very attractive for both companies, for whatever reason, the Time Warner board decided that they wanted to, that they have their own plan. I think they're coming out with their plan next week. But we really looked at it as an opportunity in time, and given the nature of these things, we don't want to get into things like hostile takeovers and all of that sort of stuff. And the doability of it, in a straightforward way, became challenged. So we decided that, we're highly confident in our business and in our base plan. As it is, we're a good size. We don't see a lot of gaps. That was really an opportunistic thing to try to do at a moment in time that we decided we didn't want to drag out and move on. We've got an exciting business that's growing. We're growing very quickly in our cable networks business around the world, in the US as well as in Latin America and Asia and Europe. Our Indian business is growing incredibly well at Star TV. We think, and I believe, really the creative quality of what we're doing in a lot of these places everywhere is very exciting. We've completed, or we're about to complete, the merger of the 3 European Sky businesses, which creates something really new, a real 21st century digital television company across all of Europe, which we think is going to be a great innovator and creator. So we had plenty to do, and we decided to just move on from that.
What's the specific benefit of bringing together the Sky Italia and Sky Deutschland?
I think the Skies are, we've always said that they would be stronger together than apart. Each of them in their own way at different parts of their life cycle have done some incredible work. But we do believe that, even though the marketplaces, Germany, Italy, and the UK, are obviously different, and in very many ways, from a business rules point of view to customer taste, et cetera, there are a lot of common things that they do, and we think that the combined entity can be a faster and better innovator. We think that deploying technology, be it over-the-top services with our Sky Go business, to new customer premise equipment platforms, we think that there's just a huge opportunity to really accelerate the whole business. And also, as those businesses get much more into developing their own programming, over the years, the Skies have created some incredible television, some incredible storytelling. And we think at scale together we can do that and even larger and faster, and we want to. And I really think in Europe in particular there's a great opportunity for that sort of, these sort of studio businesses to really do more. Everywhere where we've invested in local programming and local creative partners, we've really succeeded. From Romanzo Criminale and Gomorrah in Italy in 1992 to what we started doing at Sky in Britain some years ago, and now has just become kind of a much bigger studio operation, to Sky Deutschland as well, which is a little bit later stage, or rather earlier stage in its development, but is starting to invest in drama as well, and actually we're co-producing things together between the Skies already. So it just makes a lot of sense for them to come together and have one kind of faster innovator. And even though people say that sometimes, there's 2 theories about whether or not scale large companies can innovate. A lot of evidence would say that with the right culture and the right structure, large companies can innovate very fast just because of the pooling of research and development, because of the scale that they can pour into experimentation, and candidly, the ability to take risks and get some things wrong that they might not have otherwise been able to take.
Do you strive for a culture in 21st Century Fox where your teams can take risks and get things wrong?
Yeah, I think you'd rather that they not exclusively get them wrong, but we 100% do.
What's the last thing you got wrong?
Oh boy, don't get me started.
Just one example.
Look, I think we learn lessons along the way. I tell you, I'm not struggling because I can't remember one. There's such a long list. As a company, we've definitely made investments that have been challenging, that have been harder for us to make good, or sometimes we're not able to make good. We've certainly had challenges, famously as a company with MySpace, right, which was a total write-off and a disaster. But what we try to do is create a culture where people understand that it's much better to try, right? It's much better to take the risk, to try and aim high, even if you get it wrong, than it is to not try at all. And I think it's so easy in all businesses, and particularly in these businesses, to say no to things. It's so easy to just play it safe. But really, the great successes come from when you're taking those bigger risks. And we see that certainly creatively as well as commercially. And it's really important to have a culture where a firm doesn't get traumatized by the things it gets wrong. You can see large companies really become incredibly risk averse, incredibly slow, possibly over analytical. And we think that that's probably the wrong answer in a marketplace as dynamic as this one, but generally in business and in life. So we like to have a place where people can come and feel like they're going to be backed to take those risks. And sometimes we get there, and some pockets of the company are too risk averse, and we have to fix that because it's a pretty sprawling business.
Have you taken a big risk lately?
We're taking a bunch of risks right now. Yeah, it's.
What do you see as the big risks?
Well, I think all of our business is risk, but I guess once I was talking to an investor, and he was talking about the difference between buying risk and selling risk, and he was saying that buying risk generally is tricky, but you generally will get a better return. I think we like to look at a competitive landscape that where you might have strong incumbents in a place, but we like to look at a place where we think we can do something very different, where we think we can change. And sometimes you will get that wrong. We're investing an enormous amount right now in original programming, and that's delaying some profit for us, right? So our original programming investments, for example, in cable television in the US have grown enormously over the last number of years, particularly at FX and FXX. That's a risk. We put out, when we made The Simpsons, but then we acquired it for cable syndication in the US recently in a competitive auction with a bunch of other players. And we paid an enormous sum for the entire library. And we're making 100% of it available on an authenticated basis online. We're very excited about that, but we don't really know how customers are going to react. We think they're going to love it. 550 episodes and growing, all tagged and searchable and packaged every which way. But that was risky. When we launched The Simpsons on FXX, we played all 550 episodes in sequence over the course of, I think it was 12 days. And who knew that was going to work? But actually it worked brilliantly. And actually, John Landgraf and Chuck Stadler and Stephanie Gibbons at FX were just brilliant in how they put this together. These are the sorts of risks that you have to take where you're doing something different than might have otherwise been seen. And we'll continue to do it. I love it when I see, I love the moment in the business where you sort of go, holy cow, I can't believe we did that or tried to do that, as opposed to sort of being run of the mill. I like to be surprised, and I try to surprise my colleagues as well by, aiming pretty high for them.
When you talk about we need to have space to fail, it's a sort of language that I, as a tech guy, hear when I'm in Facebook or in Google. And I guess when there was these reports of big bids for other media companies in the summer, one thing that surprised me was that you were bidding for media companies, not technology companies. Well, isn't this becoming a game where technology companies are increasingly in the seat?
I don't think so, actually. Look, we're in different businesses somewhat, and we work very closely with, with Facebook in particular, actually, on a lot of initiatives. But I think that for us as a creative business, we find it, I think we want to continue to grow what we have. We actually really like the assets we have. We think we're pretty well positioned. We've changed a lot of our business over the last few years. We try to create, and we've tried to create over the last few years, bigger things, fewer things, and I was discussing with David backstage, we try to think about, in success, what's a project that's fundamentally going to change our lives over 10 years, right? So, if we can, continue to innovate and continue to lead in India, where we're the #1 broadcaster today, over 10 years, that is going to change our lives. If Sky Europe can be as great as it can be, that is going to change our lives. These are the things that, we want to go and do. And I think in the structure of the business, as I mentioned before, about the value of programming, copyrights going up, I think that's going to continue to be the case. I think there's an incredible shift going on in the business where you're really shifting value from, a downstream margin to upstream creators, because the competition to be differentiated, to be genuinely meaningful to customers and viewers is so intense that investment needs to be made. And we think we'll benefit from that, from being, really a leading, we'd like to be, we aspire to be the leading and best creative company in the world.
But isn't the big fundamental shift that's happening at the moment that the millennials are going onto YouTube and other online video sources, they're snacking, they're not going to become the customers for the fixed monthly satellite bill?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important not to believe that business rules are static, right? So there's absolutely no question that we live today in an environment of essentially what I think it was Michael Powell at the FCC years ago, he referred to as ultimate plurality, right? This notion that everything is available that was ever made to anyone everywhere, right? And that's really driven by connectivity. It's driven by the economics of the cloud. It was being driven to some extent by the cost of storage locally. People could have huge hard drives in their homes for very little money. Now it's really about the cloud. And I think that's an enormously exciting time for customers. Now, what that means is the competitive set that we all operate in is vastly larger than it's ever been before. It's incredibly, I was talking about before, just the creative diversity here at MIPCOM. When you walk around the floor, as I did this morning downstairs, and see, from everywhere around the world, so many new ideas, so much competition for each other to go and do this. But it's not good enough to just compete with each other, what we have this year at MIPCOM. Today, in an environment of ultimate plurality, where I can have vast libraries at my disposal as a customer, if you make a new TV show, you're competing really with every TV show that's ever been made before. It's incredibly challenging. Now, I think that's enormously exciting for customers, and I think creatively, what we're seeing around the world is some of the most incredible really an incredible revolution in quality that's coming through. And I think customers are responding to it. So if I look at the way that people are consuming dramatic series, for example, they are time shifting them, there's no question. They're consuming them on platforms that have to date been more challenging to monetize. I hate that word, but that's, to do that. But generally speaking, that part of the business, the streamed business, point to point, should be a much better business for creators and for us as well.
But
so you're right that the thing is shifting, but I think you're going to see things break down in a surprising way. It's not going to be about everything being totally atomized a la carte. Customers generally like bundling because bundling drives down prices and drives consumption up. But a Netflix is just a bundle of on-demand programming there. And actually, people really like paying a monthly subscription if it's reasonable and they get a good quality service. A Hulu Plus is like that. If I look at the Sky businesses, right, which have been providing TV Everywhere services on multiple platforms for a number of years. We started really in 2004, I think, distributing Sky to computer laptops, tablets. And that's been enormously popular, and it's why the Sky businesses have continued to grow, and amongst multiple demographics as well. So I think subscription pricing, people will bundle things in different ways for sure, and the stack will kind of get reordered. But I don't think it's as much to say, listen, there are these technology companies, YouTube's out there, subscription television is dead. I think subscription television is alive and kicking, but it's changing and it's being driven by a competitive dynamic that is, I think an enormous opportunity and pretty exciting.
But while you're spending tens of millions of dollars on a high-quality drama series, the guy in the bedroom, the PewDiePies, are getting similar viewing figures.
Yeah, look, I think what's really interesting, when you look at the diversity of programming that's out there, we were talking earlier about these unboxing videos and stuff. People will watch a lot of stuff. Customers are always, and they should always surprise us. And I always say to people, you should never overestimate the customer's satisfaction with the status quo. And the diversity that they can find online from GoPro or PewDiePie or whatever it is, right, is there and will occupy a large amount of time and consumption. But that said, we see new online video companies. We're an investor in one called Vice Media, and we're seeing millennials, we're a small investor, we're seeing millennials there engaging in long format news programming. We're seeing them engage in long format music and entertainment programming. It happens to be online. It happens to be a different kind of advertising model than is out there, but it is ultimately a quality video business that has created an authentic connection with its customers. And that's really our challenge everywhere. And everyone storytelling is how do we create that authenticity and how do we really connect with those viewers? And I think, I think actually in large parts of the business and the industry globally, I think it's actually it's a very successful time right now. And customers are being better served than they ever have by what's available to them and the manner in which it's available.
Let's look 5 years ahead and how technology is going to change the industry. A few quick-fire questions on how you see things like windowing. Is windowing going to survive?
I think, look, there's no question that it's an interesting thought. I mean, we talk about this all the time. The business rules that we have, right, broadly as kind of a TV industry, where we have, and I'm going to get myself in trouble now with all my colleagues, but we have these windows that are set up that are largely set up they were set up in order to make our product more available to customers, not less. Because you had a finite amount of inventory that you could fill up. So you had a broadcast window, and then you would have a multi-channel window, and then you would have a second pay window, and then you might have a later one as well, and you keep cycling the programming through for periods of time because there were only 3 channels or 5 channels or 100 channels or whatever the number is, but it was finite. Now, serving ones and zeros essentially from the cloud in streaming services, the necessity of windowing from an infrastructure point of view isn't really there, right? That said, we can clearly see the consumption patterns still delivering huge value for customers and for customers both on a wholesale basis, who we sell to around the world, as well as to the end viewer customer, which is usually who I mean when I say customer. But there's no question that windows have already started to contract and are shorter in many ways. There are new windows emerging, the SVOD window, Pay-2 window, all of this sort of stuff. And eventually, I think we'll probably see more comprehensive, if you will, multi-window kind of exploitation, where you'll have more availability earlier of everything. It's simply a question of the marketplace getting to a price for that, and how you then do that in the context where all the way up the chain you have partners, you have profit participants, you have creators and showrunners, et cetera, who all need to be part of that decision in terms of how you ultimately get paid, and how they feed people and how we employ people. So I think windowing will survive because it's ultimately it should be driven by making the product more accessible. When it becomes a tool for limiting choice because the old infrastructure was preferable to new products, then it will be a problem. And we need to make sure that we don't suffer from that kind of incumbency challenge as we go forward. Now, I have to say, I see actually that the television industry generally has actually been pretty progressive in terms of making things available in earlier windows, finding new people to buy programming and distribute it in new ways. And we need to continue to see that.
Quick answer, will territoriality survive?
Look, I think so for a lot of things, but I don't think it's as I don't think it's as a sure thing. both from a regulatory perspective. I mean, if we look at what's happening in the European Union today, or at the Commission in Brussels around, allowing roaming of content. So you can take, I'm not sure, I've always suspected that it's more about kind of a lot of, kind of bureaucrats in Brussels who'd like to have a Sky Italia subscription or whatever. And that's fair enough. We'd love to be able to provide them. But I think really, I think the territoriality probably will break down over time. But it's going to be driven by the marketplace and commercial. I don't think that's a technology issue.
Let's talk a bit about copyright. Now, Robert Thompson of News Corp called Google recently a platform for piracy, encouraging the spread of malicious networks, and Google responds that it's doing more than any other company almost to fight illegal online content. Who's right?
I don't know if I really want to get into that debate right now. I think there's no question that they can do more, a lot more. So certainly Google's not right in saying that they're doing more than anyone. That just isn't true. I think the real issue here in piracy is, you really have to, the problem with Google, but let's not personalize around. The problem with sort of search-driven kind of discovery out there is that once, if the content is there and it's illegal and you're just selling clicks, right, as an advertiser, as a big ad network, you have every incentive for all of that illegal programming to be there. So you may be slow, you may say, send me a letter about it if you see an infraction or whatever it is. And I think that's fundamentally not really good enough. I think, copyright is the font of innovation on a scale over the last, whenever it was in I think it was the 15th century. What are the Statute of Anne? You would remember that sort of enshrined copyright as really authors' rights, as the ability of an author and a creator to feed himself. And now this is an industry. There are hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of jobs around the world that one way or another benefit from the copyright business, our business, and music and other forms of copyright. And I think it's really important, and it's important for governments to take it very seriously. It's important for regulators to take it very seriously, and it's very, very important for infringers to be taken seriously, and those who turn a blind eye or enable infringement to be held accountable. But that's as far as I go on that. But it is a big problem. I hope, to your question before about availability or windows, one of the key things we need to do as well is make sure that we're making product available to customers in as easy a way as possible so as to disincentivize piracy at the kind of customer level as much as possible. And that's something that we have to do and we have to innovate around to make sure that we're not creating this problem in part by ourselves.
So Amazon is now making programming, and Netflix is accelerating its expansion, particularly in Europe at the moment. Are they friends who can take some of your content, or are they foes?
Well, I mean, they're partners in many ways. I mean, we sell programming and create programming for Amazon and Netflix. And they've done, I would say particularly, we don't know any of Amazon's numbers. It's a little bit of a black box over there. But I think, Netflix has obviously done, tremendously well and has really created a category out there that customers clearly love. And as they invest in more programming, that programming can be competitive with ours, but we also continue to supply programming to Netflix. And that will ebb and flow. We also supply to Hulu Plus as we sell to our partners at HBO for exploitation both on HBO as well as HBO Go, or to the Sky businesses. I think, the business is not so much a zero-sum game as some people might see it from the outside. It's a more nuanced business than that. And what we need to do is make the careful decisions that we're exploiting the product that we have in as robust a way as possible, and really therefore creating an environment where new storytellers know that they're going to be looked after, right? Know that their product is going to be, we're going to be commercial about it, we're going to sell it, we're going to do well for them, and we're also going to get the widest possible audience for what they're doing. And that's how we have to manage it, as opposed to just saying, X company is the enemy. These businesses are too diverse to have hard and fast rules around that. We have too many interactions with our partners around the industry, even when we're competing with them somewhere else.
Two last questions. You've had a demanding couple of years, especially before 21st Century Fox was created at News Corp. You made a lot of headlines. I'm not going to go into the detail. I just wonder, though, that experience, senior role in a company going through a complex time, what did you personally take out of that to be a better leader?
Well, I think it's really interesting, and I'm sure many people in this room, you go through periods of, where maybe you're more high profile than you would have chosen, or you're being attacked for something, or a company can genuinely be in crisis, and that can be driven by the press, it can be driven by politics, it can be driven by genuine failures, all those things. I think the main thing that I look at is actually, we were talking about it the other day. I think you try to learn, A, that you have to lead through those things, that all of your colleagues are going through the same thing that you are, even though you may be more high profile because you're the boss, whatever it is. But you have to lead people through those things, and you have to really enable them also to help you. And that's something that's hard to do, but you really find real strength in the organization when you stress it, right? When it gets tested like that, and strengthen individuals. And I also think that, one quality that is, often underrated, I think, is just sheer perseverance, and knowing that you can get through things if you keep, I think it was Winston Churchill. It's a bad habit. It's a bad habit to get into, which I'm not into, of quoting Winston Churchill, but I'll do it, and I probably get it wrong. I think he said, when you're going through hell, keep moving. And I that's really true. And perseverance is everything. We were talking earlier about this thing called the Marshmallow Test, where they put a marshmallow in front of, is it a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, a tiny child, and they shut the door of the room, and they have video cameras, and they say if you eat the marshmallow, if you don't eat the marshmallow, you'll get another marshmallow when I come back in the room in 2 minutes, or whatever it is, right? And then they shut the door, and the child contemplates the marshmallow, and the child might smell the marshmallow, a child might lick the marshmallow, try to take a tiny bite, some just eat it immediately. But the child that gets through it, it's one of the single best indicators of future success, is if the small child can leave the 2 marshmallows and not get through it. And actually, it was just in Wired magazine the other day, so everyone should buy your issue. But it's a really, I think it's true, and fundamentally it's about willpower, and it's about the strength of will and character, and will is everything.
Last question. 5 years' time, which of the emerging technologies, we've got Oculus Rift, virtual reality, we've got new kinds of 3D, which of these technologies is going to make an impact on how people here are making and also consuming programming?
Well, I think, I think from a standpoint of making and storytelling, I think it's enormously exciting, particularly some of these, we've seen the development in 3D at the very high end really being excellent. This Oculus Rift or virtual reality type thing, which obviously there's applications around gaming and things like that, but fundamentally, I think there's a class of storytelling that's benefiting from this technology, and the trajectory is towards immersion, right? The trajectory is toward entertainments that are indistinguishable from reality at some point, and I see that very clearly, that we're on that path. It will not be appropriate for every kind of storytelling. It will not be appropriate for every type of use case, on a tablet or on your phone or whatever it is. But for certain types of storytelling, it will really it will be the most extraordinary canvas. And I think those sorts of entertainments are clearly, we can now visibly see how you get there, and it's not science fiction. And then the other trend is about connectivity. It's what we talked about before, and connectivity around the world. And that really means that ultimate plurality will arrive. And when that arrives, it means that, we have to rethink competition law in these areas. We have to think about how we manage sort of windows and all those sorts of things, what the business rules are around our whole kind of industry. These are business rules that, generally speaking, were created with a lot of innovation, but not that much, in kind of the 70s and 80s around a technical infrastructure to deliver programming, because that was the best way to do it. We need to be pace setters, and we can be pace setters in terms of defining the business rules that are going to result in both the best products for our customers and the greatest storytelling, as well as be the best business for us. And that's That's our aspiration and our challenge.
Ladies and gentlemen, please can we thank James Murdoch.
Nice. Thank you very much. Very good of you to have me here.